Hello everyone, welcome to What If Essie Become a Villain in High School DxD Part 8. Before we start, please go support RageRevan for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Chapter 23. Relaxation Time. Previously, we saw Essie enter into the party alongside Gondal, both of whom watched as the girls went inside. They all were thinking about what dreams they should be doing. They head inside, and once they enter the mansion, Issei and Gondal head up to have a moment only for them to fake it. They head to deal with the girls. Issei takes on the guise of Malik as he fights them to deal with the girls. Malik ambushes them, leaving Charlotte with him, who have a moment with each other. The others leave as they head inside a castle to find a way to communicate with the others. Eventually, they find out about the situation as they were ambushed by Malik again, trapping the three girls. Neo, Stella and Aruka also come to know that Charlotte and Quinella are traitors. They try to reason with him, and even the truth of Mio and her family comes out. However, Malik did not care and decided to turn them into puppets as they begged him to reconsider it. Soon afterwards, Claire was brought in by Gondola and Miyuki, as she is then chained. After getting up, Issei decides to not hide and reveal the truth. He mocked Claire as she was unable to do anything. The last thing she sees is Issei completely turning her as well as his ally, and then he commands the rest of the girls to get back into their positions. Once the girls come out, their personalities have been completely altered, and they all want the factions to completely fall into despair. They tell their dreams one by one to the elders. They disregard Miyuki's dream, causing Issei to get in their way, making them realize that messing with him is a bad idea. They back away. Eventually, Malik shows up. He first tells them on how much they had failed. He then follows up by showing the Core Academy, blaming Sona and Riaz for this. He watches Malik follows up with a tune to celebrate his scheme before causing an explosion that results in the complete destruction of Core Academy. Anyone that tormented and harassed Issei Haidu was killed that day. No one was spared, not even the teachers or the director. This cause is great in the leaders, with Valerie realizing that Issei primarily destroyed Core because it was a symbol for the factions. Eventually, the faction leaders demand Issei to help them. Ajuka makes the mistake of taunting, causing him to be nearly killed by Issei. However, Gondal stops him, causing Odin to kick her out. She leaves herself as Issei calls the All-Father an idiot, which angers him. Ajuka then decides to fight only for him to get overwhelmed. Sergiches also intervenes to be humiliated. The fight goes out of hand when Latia gets injured, and when later Ajuka is killed, everyone is horrified with Issei warning them that they will meet the same fate as Ajuka as he teleports back to his home. Meanwhile, a blonde woman discusses with her peers on what needs to be done with the droid faction. Core Academy, Core 2 a.m. Malik was watching the fireworks alongside Nyx, Mocha Yura, Mocha Elmuk, Artemis, Elizabeth, and Grievous. Malik then spoke with a smile. This is beautiful. Malik spoke, earning nods from Grievous as he spoke. I was wrong to judge this plan of our Lord. The fireworks are marvelous than going and slaying those humans personally. Grievous spoke with a cheerful tone. They all saw as how a symbol falls down. So the ones that hurt Sia and are dead. Mocha Muck asked her sister, to which her sister gave a nod as she responded, they will never hurt him again, that is for sure. No human can survive that blast this close, and from what I have heard, the humans that were affiliated with the supernatural were also dealt with by suppressing their powers. Mocha Yura responded, to which Artemis speaks, indeed, that IKA was part of that organization Lavinia was part of, right? What was it called? Artemis speaks while wondering what he is talking about. Rosalba or Malik responded, to which Artemis made a disgusted face as she responded, and to think that a woman like her was a part of such a prestigious organization. Well, they are now suffering, aren't they? Artemis asked Malik, to which he responded and nodded, indeed, they first kicked her when the video was circulated to the whole world. This would have been a big blow to Lavinia, but unfortunately, she is still asleep. In her coma that Issei induced, Malik continued, earning a nod from her. So when does the fall of heaven begin? Malik looked at Elizabeth, who was completely into destroying heaven as he spoke. Soon, speaking of which, Gabriel was pretty close to you, right? Malik asks, to which Elizabeth nodded. As she speaks, then, I believe she would be influenced by the dark light inside of you. Since it was composed of the nails and the original dark light, she would be corrupting slowly and steadily, not knowing what was happening to her until it was too late. Even then, it wouldn't matter, since she would keep her mouth shut due to the hallucinations induced by issei. So her helping us actually would benefit us, and she can't even harm our operations even if she wanted to. Nix responded, as Malik nodded. They all watched the fireworks, which would slow down as time passed. Core Academy is nothing but history. Meanwhile, as this was going on, issei teleported back to the residence. He was greeted by Sikvara and Gonal, both of whom were happy that he was back. Even Sikvara was happy. Issei asked, "How is she?" Sigvara shook her head and responded, "Her injuries are recovering steadily." Sigvara looked down and spoke, "But she is crying. Her own uncle nearly would have killed her." Due to his rage, the truth broke her completely. Issei nods. As he heads inside, Sigvara exclaims, "Wait." Issei turns towards her. He saw her face. It was despair written as she spoke, "Please help her." Issei walks inside as the girls look at him in awe. Gondel looked at Issei, thinking now would not be the right time to call him and talk to him about this. Inner Gondel was now planning on joining Issei, and she was going to take revenge on Adan for what he did to her. She was happy that Issei stood up for her, and despite whether being a spy for Issei, due to his assault on Asgard back then, she served Adan diligently for decades without hesitation, taking up orders even when she believed that it was morally against what she believed in. She blindly believed that Adan was in the right. Now, she started to hate him. She stopped Issei from killing Ajuka, and when her counterpart voiced her complaints against the faction leaders, she was expelled. Adan was going to pay for what happened to her. As Issei reached inside, he saw Lashia looking at him in surprise. She then asked, "Issei?" Lashia looked as she saw Issei approach towards her, her eyes scanning his current intentions. "What brings you here?" Lashia spoke with a smile. However, Issei noticed it was fake. "How are you doing?" Issei sat beside Lashia, who responded. Issei realized that she was completely heartbroken to what Ajuka had did to her. Her smile did not help as she asked, "So is my uncle dead?" "I personally killed him," Issei spoke. Latia widened her eyes and looked away. She then spoke. Issei asked as he responded, "Do you hate me, Latia?" Latia shook her head as she spoke. "I do not. My uncle brought this on himself, if anything. You warned them multiple times, and yet they did not listen. They took you for granted, and well, understood." He could sense her sadness and despair as she spoke. "Don't get me wrong, I am sad for his death. He loved me like his very own, but recent events changed him. I really don't understand. Malik's intentions aren't wrong, but his methods will just exterminate the supernatural, even innocence. I find it just wrong." Latia started to tear up as she spoke with sniffles, "But even then, no one came for me when I was engaged to you. I hated when my uncle compromised myself to you. He did not even come for me or Si-chan. When I first knew you, I feared what you would do to us, given your hatred for us. You may hurt or kill us, or worse, you would hate or take advantage of us." Issei shook his head in disbelief as he asked, "Latia, you know I am not that type of a person, right?" "I know, Issei, but even then, the only thing I knew back then was your hatred for us." Latia spoke with sniffles as she continued, "We were afraid on what you would do to us, not mentioning that we were just told this a day before the engagement." "Wait. So you two were unaware?" Issei asked Latia, who only nodded in response as she spoke. "Either me nor Si-chan knew about this. I was not an avid believer of the rumors, but your attitude scared me to no bounds." Latia sniffled as Issei wanted to put his hand to calm her down, but decided to give her privacy, as he was angry that the girls barely even knew that they were in an engagement. Even Riaz had a few years before she was officially engaged to Riser. Issei then spoke. "I see, so what will you do now?" Latia shook her head as she spoke. "I am not going to lie. I would rather stay here than go to the underworld, although, one last time, I will go to visit my uncle and pay some respects for what he has done for me. After that, I am never going back." Issei spoke. He then spoke while getting up. "Take some rest. You have been through a lot recently. I will take my leave." Issei was about to head for the door when Lashia grabbed his hand. This surprised Issei as he turned around to see Lashia having a subtle blush on her face as she spoke softly. Don't go, please. Issei sat down next to her and spoke. What happened? Can you stay here with me for a while? Issei smiled and spoke. Sure, if that's what you want. After leaving Latia, who had fell off to sleep, Issei headed outside, as Kukvara asked, How is she? Issei spoke normally. She is sleeping well. Tomorrow will be a big day after all. Sekira nodded. To her and most of the other girls, Issei being into their life was more or less of a blessing at this point. As she asks, Did you kill Lord Beelzebub? Issei nods in response, causing her to gulp in fear. I can sense your fear, Issei dashed, and before Sekira could react, Issei was only a few millimeters in distance. Rather than blush, Sekira felt fear as she closed her eyes while clasping her hands. Soon she sensed Issei's hand coming towards her. Fearing the worst, she braced herself. However, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She sniffled in slight fear as she looked and watched Issei speak. Hey! You don't have to fear me, Sigvara. I am not someone who will hurt you. Sigvara nodded as he then spoke. Well, let's relax tomorrow. Once Latia comes back from her funeral, we can do something. Wait, Latia is visiting the underworld for his funeral after everything that has happened? Sekiruuyetei asked surprised, as Issei shrugged and responded, Yep. Sekiruuyetei sighed. She knew how close Latia and Ajuka were, and things have become worse as this crisis revealed her uncle's true personality. Well, I will probably accompany her, Sekiruuyetei spoke, as she then continued, but I think I should go for some rest. This has been a stressful day, Issei nodded. As Sekiruuyetei spoke, she then walked away, but not before turning around and speaking. Thank you, Issei, for tolerating us, Sekiruuyetei spoke with a blush as she walks away. Now that's a first, Issei spoke with a surprised tone before looking at the side, sensing a very familiar presence, someone he did not like. But before that, let me deal with her, Issei spoke as Drake wondered what Issei was going to do to the seraph that was hiding herself from the rest of the residents. Issei glared at the bush and commanded. Come out, Gabriel, I know you are there. Gabriel sheepishly came out. She was fearful. Issei approached her, dark light in hand. However, he was surprised on what he saw next. Gabriel's eye color was different. Instead of having eye colors that she usually did, it was amethyst, just like dark light in his palms, as he thought. How can this be? Issei thought with surprise and anger as he did not put dark light on her. Unlike Elizabeth, this meant only one thing. I believe the dark light must be leaking, and since Elizabeth was close to Gabriel, on your orders, and with Gabriel's bad mental state, she was bound to be infected. Her being in denial reduced her normal angelic immunity to this. That is my thesis on how dark light infected her, and no one else. Issei widened his eyes in shock. He was not expecting this to happen, another unknown variable he did not account for, as he asked, Does this mean no? Everything makes sense, her finding the Mocha twins and even following me here, when no leader dared make sense. Now she is similar to Elizabeth. Issei thought to Drake, as she was no better than a sleeper agent now, an agent that can act like a puppet. I believe you should talk to Elizabeth about this. You may need to alter dark light's properties a little to prevent its leakage. She would have been caught. Issei clenched his fist on Drake's words. He was not angry because of what Drake said. One of his allies was in potential danger, and she had just dodged a bullet, a fatal bullet. So what do you want, Gabriel? Gabriel bowed when Issei asked, as she spoke, I am your new ally in this war, and I want to destroy the Angel faction. Issei understood one thing, since unlike most of his usual sleeper agents, he doubted if she had an inner version, like many of his other sleeper agents did. And why should I trust you? Issei spoke, as he generated a light blade. He knew that angels were no better than a devil. He scanned her trying to see what kind of a person she really is. He noticed that dark light has a tendency to warp someone's mind, so his theory was that dark light acted as a sort of motivator for her, making her turn to his side. He aimed the dark light blade at her throat, ready to take down another leader in just one night. As Gabriel shivered in fear, looking at the blade, he was ready to kill her if need be. As he watched her mentally shivering, she, like many others, feared death, especially when it amounted to nothing. Please, Jay just need to talk. Issei looked at her, seeing no lies. As he lowered his blade, he noticed her acting weird recently since she brought the Mocha twins to him, or more accurately, reunited him with the only people that he cared for. So what do you want? Issei asked, as Gabriel looked at him and responded. I desire to help you take down the Heaven faction, Lord Issei. Gabriel bowed in front of her new lord. As Issei sighed, he commanded, Get up. Gabriel reached his level, as Issei spoke coldly. How do you plan on achieving that? I have upper-level clearance into the sacred gear system, as well as detailed plans on the Heaven system, including a self-destruct feature that will completely destroy Heaven, leaving no trace of it. Gabriel spoke seriously, to which Issei nods. Gabriel then continues while Issei listens intently. In addition, my level of clearance into the Heaven systems is as much as Archangel Michael's or any of the other seraphs. I can help you infiltrate Heaven without any issue and help you with the fall of Heaven whenever you need it. Gabriel spoke seriously as Issei nodded in agreement. Very well, good grief. Today is one hell of a day, Issei muttered, loud enough for only Dreg to hear, as Dreg asked. So what do you think of her? Issei sighed as he spoke. I am really not in a mood to deal with her, so I will probably ask Elizabeth to handle her. You might have to do something to appease her for that. You know, she does not like the Heaven faction. Right, Drake spoke mockingly as Issei internally groans at his best friend's words. Well, either way, go back to Heaven, Gabriel, that is my order, and report everything to Elizabeth. I will tell her about the situation at hand, Essie commanded with a tired tone as Gabriel nods and teleports. He then heads back as he speaks. I should probably sleep. Nyx should be in bed right now. Essie headed to his room and saw Nyx, Charlotte, and Quinella all asleep in the room. They were all in their underwear, as it made all of them comfortable. He saw that they had left a spot for him as he slept on the spot. All the girls cuddled to him as he embraced all of them and slept nicely. I would be by your side for all eternity, and I will love the three of you for all eternity, and that is my promise to you girls. Issei cuddled them even more as the girl smiled, sensing his warmth. Scene change, time skip brought to you by Chibi Charlotte learning seducing techniques from Chibi Quinella and Chibi Nyx. The next day, Astrid Territory, 9:30 a.m. The funeral had taken place for the fallen Satan. Some were mourning his death, while the others were silent. Some believed that Issei was a sort of an unstoppable death god that no one knew how or when to stop. Latia seemed to be grieving, despite her animosity towards him. A part of her still loved him. Next to her was Issei, who wore a black robe around him. He made sure to hide his presence so that no one would see her. Sigvara was also beside her, looking at her friends sadly. She then turned to Ijuka's body, looking at it apathetically. She had no love for the man in front of her. Hurting Lachia was the last straw. She just watched the scene. Palatia spoke, turning her attention to both Sigvara and Assi. As Sigvara asked, Is something wrong? Latia responded, Thank you guys even when you two did not want to come here. It's alright, we girls need to stick together, right, Latia? Sichvara spoke with a smile, as Assi speaks. And besides, I don't trust Sergiches. He was ready to kill me when I only tried to keep my promise. Assi spoke, as Latia had a blush. She looked around to see Ijuka's casket being closed before it was buried underneath. Latia sniffled as she and the others were ready to leave, but no sooner than she left, she heard a voice. Why are you even here, Latia? The trio turned around to see a grief-stricken Sergiches. He was furious as he exclaimed. You are with that monster, and you have the audacity to show up here. Sergiches exclaimed, as Issei was ready to put the prideful Satan in his place. However, a hand stopped her. This was revealed to be Sigvara. We are only here because Latia wanted to give her respects to her uncle. And who are you to tell us that whether we should visit or not? Sigvara retorted as Sergius clenched his fists in fury. If anything, he is responsible for us to be engaged to that monster. You of all people should know, right, Lord Lucifer? Sergic has clenched his teeth in fury. He still has not recovered from the dark light attack his Sei had put him through, exemplified by the wounds all over his body. However, before he could do anything, he was dragged by Graphia. He reluctantly agreed to go with her. As Sigthara sighed, she then spoke. You okay? Latia nods as issei speak. Let's head back. I believe the funeral is done, and judging by Saskansik's attitude, I don't think you should be here. Latia nodded in agreement, as issei was about to open up a portal. However, a voice calls out. Lady Astaroth? Lady Agars? The two girls looked to see a low-class devil approach them. As they look at the man, he was not threatening. What do you want? Latia asked coldly, as the devil gulped and spoke. I request you to send a message to the Red Dragon to say hi to, from the Honorable Council of Elders. The devil declared as issei thought. Honorable my ass, prideful, arrogant assholes you guys are, Latia then spoke. What is it? They desire a meeting with Lord issei as soon as possible. This was so that he does not wipe out the devils for what Lord Astraf had done. The devil spoke, Sigvara asked. But isn't he Lord Beelzebub? The devil shook his head and responded. He has been stripped of his title. He will be henceforth called Ajuka Astaroth. The devil spoke sadly, as issei sighed. Now he understood why Sergiches was so furious. The grief of losing his friend combined with this turned him into so unstable. We will let him know, but tell them it is not certain whether he will accept. The devil nodded as he leaves from the room. Isil decided to head back home with Lisha and Sigvara. Isil reported the three back. They all decided to relax for the time being, while issei wonders on whether he should do something about the invitation. Scene change. Alex Base, 11 a.m. Issei and Elizabeth were seen conversing with each other. This was primarily due to the fact of the events that have happened yesterday, as she asked in surprise. Wait, Gabriel is a dark angel, Elizabeth exclaimed in surprise as issei nods. Indeed, the dark light that emanated from your body had reached her, and combined with her current mental state, she was an easy victim. Issei spoke with his hand open as he sighed. I am just glad that nothing happened to you. Issei spoke. As Elizabeth blushed, issei knew one thing, that Elizabeth was a valuable ally and not a sleeper agent like Yusaku or Asia. She can be trusted at this point, as she reported everything to issei and willingly joined him like Artemis did. Elizabeth shook her head and asked, So I am now her babysitter? Issei chuckled and responded, Yep. Elizabeth sighed in response. Either way, I should apologize. I just came to know about this yesterday. When I used dark light on her, it reacted with the dark light in her body. Elizabeth shook her head and spoke. No need to, you are unaware of this, right? Issei nods as she speaks with a smile. Then, I don't mind, and besides I am glad that the one who is my superior will now be listening to my orders. Elizabeth looked at issei and asked, But is there a way to prevent this from happening to anyone else? I don't want to turn any of those hypocrites to our cause, issei nodded. As he approached Elizabeth, he then spoke. I will be altering the dark light in your body and configuring it to make sure that it does not leak, and for that, I will be putting my palm on your head. I hope you don't mind. Elizabeth nodded as issei touched her head. Elizabeth became flustered. She had a red blush on her cheeks as she felt her dark light being altered, resulting in her making a small moan. Issei was also feeling a bit uncomfortable as he tried his best to make it as quick as possible. Moments later, he speaks. I ain't done. Issei removes her hand as Elizabeth tried her best to maintain her composure as she speaks. Thank you, Lord Issei. Elizabeth teleported back to heaven, where she decided to give orders to Gabriel. Issei's expression then changed into a serious look. I am going to need a much stronger attack force. Later on, Issei spoke seriously as he was considering making a superior version of the B2 super battle droids and perhaps a new general one day. Scene change. I do residence 12:30 p.m. He teleports back to his house where he walks across the rooms. He was then dragged into a room. He looks at the person who dragged him as she spoke. Hello, I see. Nick spoke with a cheerful tone as he looked around. There was a special cupcake right next to him as he asked, Is this for me? Issei spoke with surprise as Nyx nodded. She wound her arms around him as she spoke. Yeah. I made it all by myself. After all, it's your birthday. Right. Issei realized this, and shook his head as he spoke. My birthday is on April. You are 5 months late. Nix widened her eyes in shock as she looks away and apologizes. Sorry. No, Nix. It's the thought that counts. Essie spoke with a smile as she looked surprised. Essie then spoke. Thank you, Nix. Nix blushed as she looked away. Essie kissed her on her lips, making her blush even more as he brought the cake towards her and started to eat the cupcake. Nix looked at Essie eating it and asked, How is it? Nix asked, as Issei spoke, It's a pretty good, thank you. Charlotte taught me how to bake, and well, it was relatively easy. Issei smiled, as he then remembered as he asked, But couldn't you just conjure up using your darkness? Nix widened her eyes as she spoke. I chose not to and baked it by myself. Using an oven, Nix spoke in a sad tone as Issei realized and knew that she must have worked hard for it. No. I am just surprised to have a cake baked by you, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Essie spoke with a smile as Nix blushed and looked away as Essie hugged her, making her completely flustered. They split up. As they spent some time together, Nix then asked, Is it true, were you the one to kill Ajuka? Issei nods as he asks, Are you angry? Why would I be? Nix spoke with a smile. We were going to deal with him sooner or later, and you must have had a reason to get rid of him permanently. He heard his own niece. Nix widened her eyes upon Issei's words, as she asked, For real? Yep. He had it coming, and he was mad because I refused to help any of them, especially after the fall of Kwa Academy. Nix sighed. She was shocked and angry that Ajuka would do this to his own niece as he continued, and worst of all, Gondel was kicked out because she supported me, so we can't have anyone spying on the Norse. Damn it, Nix exclaimed in anger as she pitied Gondel. Her inner self must have been devastated. Not only that, they also lost their only spy in Norse as a side. We will need to find another infiltrator for the Norse, but aside from that, Gondel hasn't been the same. I think sooner or later, she would come talk to me so that she can willingly join me, Issei spoke with a sigh. How about we manipulate Odin and the others using Alpha Tyrant and innovate clear? Nix suggested, as Issei shook his head and responded, There is no point. On the bright side, Gondel managed to get every last piece of information, even about Mjolnir and other Norse weapons, including Valundra and other weapons that the gods use. Issei spoke, Aside from that, I am strong enough to take down Ajuka without even going balance breaker, so if I strike at the right time, we can take down Norse. But for now, our priority is the Heaven faction. Yes. But we should relax. Heaven must already be in turmoil as we speak. Nix spoke seriously. Speaking of which, what should we do with Morana and Athena? Her corruption was 75%. So if anything, she would soon be completely corrupted. As for Morana, she is still in sadness. She refuses to go to heaven. Some convincing should get the job done, hopefully. Issei spoke with a shrug. And Valerie, how will we get her? Issei spoke in response to Nix's question. Quinella should be able to handle it. If anything, she was going to use Gasper to lure her out and eliminate her, and she would be a handy slave that we can exploit. Issei remembered that while she was not like Amenhot, she was no better than most of the girls. Thanks to Riaz and Gasper, even she was manipulated by many others. He sighed. She was more of an annoyance rather than someone that hurt Issei emotionally like Amenhot did. Scene change. Ida residence, 2 p.m. Athena was reading a book in her room. She sighed, knowing how difficult things have been ever since Issei left the party that had taken place yesterday. Not that she blamed him for anything. At this point, she won't be surprised if Issei wanted to destroy the factions. She only had one person that visited her often, and she was Hestia. She seemed to be exhausted on a daily basis due to the chaos that was taking place. She offered her a place to stay, but she chose to stay back for her fellow Olympians so that she can aid them, but she was considering staying with them. Soon, she heard 2 knocks on the door as the voice outside asked, Hey, Athena, are you free? Athena kept her book down. As she opened the door, she was wearing a purple gown. As her hair was left open, she looked at her guest. Oh, what brings you here? Here for some advice. Athena looked at his say hi too, as he asked, May I come in? Athena nods as she responds, Sure, why not? Issei settles down as he speaks. I have a few questions, hope you don't mind. Athena nods as she speaks. Go ahead. Athena looks at Issei, wondering what he wanted to ask her as he asks, So are you free? We can go out somewhere? Issei asks, which surprised Athena. She blushed, remembering what had happened a few days ago when she had decided to sleep on Issei's bed and the plan backfired. Well, what do you think of me? Athena asked as Issei spoke. I am not going to lie. When I first saw you, I never liked you since you were related to Zeus. Issei spoke seriously, causing Athena to look down. She started to hate Zeus for 2 reasons. 1, she was pretty much given away to Issei, and 2, the amulet was influencing her, showing her memories of what it was had Issei came in her life. She was seeing that Issei was not so bad, if anything, him being close to her was a blessing. But then, I noticed you are not as bad as Zeus was. If anything, that coward of a god will never show his ass up here, no matter what happens. And honestly, I saw all Olympians like that until Hestia and Artemis showed up at my front yard days ago. Issei spoke with a smile. Even when we first conversed about the mysterious sister, you were surprisingly cordial, not what I was expecting to hear from a daughter of Zeus. Athena blushed at this. Those were what Issei thought of her. She was partially happy that Issei did not hold animosity towards her. And worst of all, I even heard that you sacrificed yourself and your own dignity in the meeting to appease me. On your leader's orders, Issei spoke with a tone of sadness, which caused Athena to look sadly. She did so much for Zeus, and she never got a visit from him. Her hatred for the thunder god has increased to the point that she would never go back to Olympus no matter what happens. If anything, you surprised me with what I was expecting from you. You are not what I was expecting Athena to be, arrogant, abrasive, and aggressive. I thought you would have given me a tough time as like your father did. I guess I was wrong. Issei spoke while looking up the ceiling. As Athena nodded with a smile, she closed her eyes. As nodded, Issei was a way better person to live and fight for than Zeus. You are even loyal to those that care for you, Issei spoke with a smile. As Athena noticed this and looked away, she blushed. Issei then spoke with a smile. So let's go outside. I am free anyway. So I was hoping for us to go for a picnic, Athena stammered in response due to her embarrassed look. Oh okay, Sa nodded. As he walked away, he then spoke, We can go now if you want. Athena did not mind. A magic circle of Greek origin was formed underneath her. As the circle went over her body, it changed her clothing completely as she now wore a white crop top, black shorts, and heels. Her hair was tied in a ponytail. Her white crop top had golden outline on them as she looked at Issei with an embarrassing blush. I brought these when I decided to stay here. Athena spoke with an uncertain tone. I am not sure if I look good in these. You look beautiful. It is wrong to describe you with words as they can't describe how beautiful you look. Issei spoke with a smile. Athena muttered to Issei, Liar. Issei shook his head and responded, Be more sure of yourself, Athena. Your beauty can contend even with Aphrodite. You should love yourself. Have faith in me. Athena nods with a smile as Issei opens up a portal. He looks back at Athena, who is ready to go. He did not prefer teleportation with magic circles, but this portal was much more comfortable and easier to camouflage. Scene change. Malak's base for PM. Malak was working on the training of La Folia. She was training relentlessly as she now wore black robes with the edges being a darker shade. She had her hair tied in a bun and wielded a 2-sided red blade. The robes covered her entire body, leaving no trace of it. Alright, that's a wrap. Malak spoke. As La Folia deactivated her blades and took a breather, she released her hair back to normal. She is learning quite fast, Malak thought with surprise. His new apprentice would be battle-ready in no time. As he spoke, Take the rest of the day off. You earned it. La Folia nods as she settles down to have some water. Malak walks out of the room as he had some work to do. He was never interested in relaxing like many of his subordinates or allies preferred to do so. He wanted the factions to fall, but at the same time, he understood why Issei wants to take it slow. It would take away the fun and thrill of it, and for Issei, it was their suffering. He wanted them to suffer for what they did to their true hero, and even now, they still believe that they are entitled to his help just because he was a former human. And look what happened, Ajuka is dead, along with Seraphil. He checked his phone. He saw the news article of Qua Academy being blown up. Millions of beings that were related to the kids were devastated, and the worst part is that the perpetrators will never be found or caught. Balak chuckled. The duo is now a faction when it was once just him, and issei is now filled with allies who want to see the factions fall to the ground, be destroyed permanently. Several now fear and dread the droid faction, fearing whom will they attack next. In addition, Quinella and Charlotte were able to acquire Aquino and Pennymew. Both of them were easy to acquire because of their terrible mental states. Aquino was the easiest, while Pennymew put up a fight. Therefore, Grievous joined Charlotte, and the combined efforts were able to take her down and enslave the fallen cadre. Using her, she was able to inform them a lot of Grigori's secrets, and tell them what is next. I am not so sure on how we can strengthen ourselves, Malak spoke with a deep thought. He remembered to say asking about how they could strengthen his army. Malak and Grievous were out of ideas. They knew that their star destroyers were their strongest weapons. Another general, perhaps. Malak thought. He wondered which general would be needed since their army was getting bigger day by day. Even a small portion was capable of destroying a faction like Grigori, making sure reviving it would take forever. Another would be too broken, but that doesn't mean that we can't do it. Malaki had a sinister smirk on his face. The heaven is going to be under a big surprise once the big reveal happens sooner than what they expect. The factions will be at their lowest with the fall of heaven, and they have to plan accordingly. Make sure Malak's army is an unstoppable force of nature. They still have hope that his say will help them. They needed to increase that hope even more, and when their hope towards him is the maximum, that is when the truth will be revealed that their former hero was their biggest enemy. Artemis was walking in the base. She had just finished the last of her job, and that was to gather all the intel that Olympus had. No one suspected her even in the slightest. Despite this, something was bothering her. Shura Se was starting to trust her, and sure she was a valuable member of the droid faction, but a part of her felt off, like she was not whole. She did not bother about it before. Ever since her former lover Orion died, she knew that aside from him, no one will ever gain her love until she did. And his betrayal still stung her even more. Ever since that day, she hated men, until her fateful encounter with Lord Issei, who showed her the truth. He even called her a quitter, something that rang inside her head for a long time, even after she saw the truth of her faction selling her out. That was the last straw. The only men she could trust were Issei, Malak and Grievous, and perhaps Apollo. But as Issei told her, she needs to know that all men are not rotten, and she realized that soon. When she encountered women just as bad, if not worse than most men, she regretted her past actions. But now, that longing of another companionship was starting to affect her, now of all things. She needed to say, but why? Why did she need him? What was this feeling inside of her? Hey, Artemis. Artemis turned her attention to Malaki, causing her to snap outside of her thoughts. You seem lost. Did something happen? And no, nothing happened. So how is La Folia? Malaki responded to Artemis's question. Her skills are pretty good. She is catching up fast. I may give some of my telekinesis very soon. It is a very good magic skill against a lot of the faction enemies. Artemis nods as she decides to walk away. Wait. Artemis looked surprised as Malaki asked, did something happen? No. Why would you think that? Malaki shook his head as he realized that she was hiding something from him. 'Cause you are hiding something from us. Tell me, is something the matter? Artemis looked away with a sad look as she spoke. I don't know how to phrase it, but I feel longing for someone. Honestly, I am not sure, but I feel empty. Truth be told, I don't know how to say this, but I want someone that would care and cherish me. But you have Athena and some of the Olympians, right? Artemis shook her head and spoke. I know, but I just feel not the same, like a part of my heart is missing. Valak now understood what she is talking about. She desires love, someone who would love her more than anything or anyone else, and not parental or sibling love, but a love from a life partner or a soulmate's love. He then spoke. I see. So do you have a crush on Issei? Artemis stammered as she looked at Malak. What do you mean? Artemis was surprised by this, with her cheeks starting to redden up. Malak now completely knew of her feelings for Issei. so he decided to do a little teasing. So you don't have a crush? Artemis was silent on Malik's words. She was too embarrassed to speak anything. Oh, so you don't and no, Artemis did not want to speak anything, as Maliki now understood that she was falling for her lord, as he smirked. Well, then you don't mind, since your sister might soon take him for her own. I will not let that happen, Artemis exclaimed, as she widened her eyes and covered her face completely. She was too embarrassed to even do anything, she hummed in embarrassment. Malik then spoke. You show jealousy, meaning you are in love with him, aren't you? Artemis looked at Malik. Her face was flustered with a blush coming on her face as Malik spoke. I see. Who knew that the man-hating Karen would fall in love with a man? Would you stop calling me that? Artemis spoke with an annoyed tone as Malik chuckled in response. He then spoke, jokes aside, it is nice to see you change so much. Although if I were you, I would confess to his say, just tell him what is in your heart, and confess to him, otherwise, you may lose him completely. Malik spoke while walking away as Artemis looked at Malik and asked, but what if he rejects me? Malik looked at her and responds, I am not sure then, but give it a shot since you never know what will happen. Artemis nods. As Malik leaves the room, she wonders when she can confess to Issei and at what time would be nice. Scene change. Unknown Forest, Canada, 5 a.m. Issei and Athena were sitting on a mat. As they watched the scenery, there was a forest with a river that flowed. Issei made sure to not let any Olympians or any other faction show up to ruin anything in this area. This place is beautiful. Athena was awed by this place, as Issei looked at her and responded, I am glad you liked it. It is spring in Canada right now and pretty early in the morning, so we can have some fun here. Issei couldn't help but smile seeing Athena's smiling face. He sighed, seeing this. He wondered what would have happened if he had a loving family. He would be training and fighting for something else, or someone else. Thank you, Athena spoke with a smile. She grabbed his hand as tears fell down from her eyes. He looked at her, widening his eyes, losing his smile as he asked with concern. What happened? Issei asked, as Athena realized this and wiped her tears. What's wrong? Nothing. Nothing is wrong, Athena spoke, looking away as Issei pressed on. Please tell me if anything is wrong. Athena just wanted to let it go as Drake asked mentally. I don't want to interrupt this moment, but you should use your ability, mind read, you rarely use it. Drake spoke mentally as Issei nods. He wanted to hit his forehead due to him forgetting this ability he had earned from Great Red. Issei looked into Athena's eyes. He saw many things she has done as well as what she is going through right now. Normally it would have been difficult, but due to Great Red upgrading it, it was a child's play. Her mental state was bad, if not worse ever, as Zeus abandoned her despite doing so much for him. He hugged her so that she wouldn't shatter into 1,000 pieces. Or that's what he thought. From turning Medusa to stone, you did everything for them. One may say that you are cruel, but you did it to please them. You've always felt alone and have nowhere to belong. Issei spoke as Athena nodded sadly. You don't have to go anywhere. Like I said before, if you want to leave, you can. Please don't leave me, Athena spoke in a pleading tone, as Issei responded, I won't. Her condition makes me want to torture Zeus to the point of no return. She is just like how Artemis was in her early days of joining the droid faction. She would have been a headache before, Issei thought coldly and angrily. After a few minutes Athena calmed down. Issei sat under a nearby tree and motioned Athena to follow him. He then put a brown tablecloth on his lap so that Athena could lean on it. She lies down on his lap. The place was chosen so that the early sun rays wouldn't bother her or Issei. Eliminate each faction, people like you are no longer worthy to live in this world. You have clearly shown me that you are beyond forgiveness. It will never cross my mind, Issei muttered coldly, as Drake asked, you have something planned, don't you? Issei only mentally smiles, as Drake grins in response, lacking his plan. He knew the person to be his next general. Although I wonder how long would it take to release Crom from his prison? Issei responded to Drake's question, maybe a few more days, hopefully. But will he join you? Issei shook his head and responded, even if he did not, it wouldn't change the inevitable. And besides, I know that he would keep his mouth shut. Issei saw Crom as a potential ally, but unlike several others, He gave the choice to join willingly since his brother is long dead, and he can no longer go to another host and repeat the cycle. He gave this option to Drag, but he refused. He chose to stay with his partner and best friend. He would be free when he wanted to. He chose to stay with him for all eternity. Scene change, time skip. A few hours later. Oh, this is embarrassing, Athena exclaimed as Issei was feeding her some cheesecake, to which Athena tried to run away. It's rare seeing you act like this, Issei spoke with a chuckle. He was enjoying teasing one of the three virgin goddesses. Athena pouted on this as Issei responded, "Don't get mad, I just want to spoil this beautiful woman." Athena looked at him for a moment as she then asked, "Can I ask you something? Promise you won't laugh?" "Go ahead," Issei responded with a smile. "I want to sing." Athena spoke with a small blush as Issei smiled affectionately. He looked at her as she started to sing, which put Issei in a trance. Soon afterwards, Issei clapped for her, making her blush. Eventually even Issei joined singing as he decided to sing a song from a game he recently played. "This is something you will enjoy, Athena," Issei changed the song as he brought out a mixtape and he started to sing. Athena watched in anticipation. This genre of music was rare since it was not often talked about. After singing, Athena clapped for him as Issei bowed in response. Athena then asked, "I never expected a song from a game to be this good." Athena's tone was full of surprise as she looked at Issei, who responded, "You should hear some video game songs. They are not so bad," Issei spoke. As he continued, "Video games were one of the few things that kept me sane dealing with those morons for 2 years. Athena spoke with a deep thought as she and Issei both went home soon afterwards, since people may have a chance of seeing them, and they did not want to attract any supernatural beings here. Chapter 24, Preparation for the Assault. Few days later, Idu residence, 9:30 a.m. The blonde girl was running away. She had amethyst eyes and were completely pure. She is a wonderful beauty whose eyes were pure and her hair shined like gold. Her running was dropping objects. She was desperate and trying to escape. She was running without looking back, looking for a way out of the room. She couldn't believe what happened as she were trying to escape. A few hours ago, sir, if Gabriel has set her up, she was being chased by 2 BX series commando droids. She remembered Gabriel speaking to a certain Malik that she was going to cause the fall of heaven. When she was detected, Gabriel cheekily replied that she is one of them now. She was Morana Shiratova. "I can't believe that Lady Gabriel lied to us like this." Morana spoke in sadness and rancor. She realized that the woman that she admired and looked up to, she is an enemy. "Now I must get out of here before anyone else comes to know." Morana tried to escape from the place as she looked for a way, but was unable to find any way out. She heard some clanging forcing her to hide behind the couch in the living room. "You should have kept quiet." One of the commando droids spoke in a what seemed to be a mocking tone as they continued scanning the area. "Damn it. I need to get out of here." Morana thought as she saw a window, but first she would need a distraction. She saw a nearby ball and threw it in the opposite direction. "There. You cannot hide for much longer." The second commando droid spoke as the 2 droids rushed in that direction. Morana jumped outside of the window, successfully escaping the 2 droids. The place was surprisingly high due residence since that is where Gabriel was talking to Malik. She was called on a mission due to the disturbance that was happening lately. She, however, caught her talking to Malik. And when Gabriel sensed her, she gave the offer of joining her, but she refused as the 2 commando droids agreed on eliminating the threat, as they knew that she can pose a problem to her plans. "I must get away from here. I still have a little strength to teleport back to heaven." Morana was ready to teleport when she heard a call for her name. "Hey, where are you going?" Morana turned around to see Issei and Elizabeth in front of her. Issei wore a casual blue jacket with a red shirt. He also additionally wore a bluish-white jeans and red shoes. Issei was the one to ask the question. Elizabeth wore a pink frock with a whitened shirt. Her skirt was well buttoned with the frock having some freckles. She wore heels. Morana noted that by judging from her expression, she went to a date where she had enjoyed. Well, Gabriel, Issei and Elizabeth understood that something must have happened as Elizabeth asked, seeing the expression Morana was in. "What happened to Lady Gabriel?" Elizabeth spoke while feigning sadness, as she seemed to be in a worried state. Where did the two of you went? Marana asked, as she did not seem to ruin her friend's mood, as Issei spoke with a smile. Oh, we just went to an outing. Elizabeth and I were on a different location. Elizabeth seemed to have a subtle blush as Marana looked surprised. She then spoke, Issei must be good. Asiel shook her head as she continued, Gabriel is working with the droid faction. Elizabeth feigned shock and surprise as Issei narrowed his eyes. He hardly cared for what Gabriel did, or at least that was what Morana saw him do, but in reality, he did care, and he was unhappy that Gabriel almost ruined his plans. She saw the mission plans in her hands, which were problematic. Before Issei could do anything, Elizabeth chopped Morana's neck, knocking her out. Her body slumped to the ground as she had a look of shock on her face. She fell down before passing out completely. You should be happy that Lord Issei has a reason to keep you alive. Elizabeth spoke coldly as Issei came to her and spoke seriously. Was knocking her out necessary? Elizabeth looked at him and responded in disgust. I believe she can be a potential issue to our plans. She is still loyal to angels even after what they did. Issei nodded as moments later Gabriel came out with the two BX Commando series droids. I was going to eliminate the plans before we had got Morana to our side. Issei shook his head when Gabriel spoke those words as he responded, this was risky. The evidence you were holding, you should have gotten rid of them immediately. It was a good thing we just came back. Otherwise, your actions would have jeopardized potentially everything, and we would have to wipe them out immediately. Issei spoke coldly as Gabriel gritted her teeth in disgust. As she spoke, I should have dealt with her and got her to our side. Elizabeth shook her head and responded, seriously, this isn't a game. It's better that you don't make the same mistake twice. Gabriel nodded. She was not going to make this mistake again, as one of the commando droids spoke. Supreme Leader, you should get her to our side or turn her into a sleeper agent, or eliminate her. She must not remain alive so that the factions know about this, Issei responds seriously. I will deal with her accordingly. Issei's tone changed into a mocking one. After all, she is one of the few I was engaged to. Issei brings out Elphika Tyrant as he throws a nail into her neck. Moments later, he enters into Morana's consciousness to convince her to be by their side. She will be instrumental in the fall of heaven alongside Gabriel and Elizabeth. Inside Morana's mindscape, 10 a.m., Issei reached the blonde girl's inner self and saw her chained to the ground. She seemed to be looking away as Issei lightly tapped her face. Yo! I am here! Issei exclaimed, gaining the attention of the girl. She was surprised to see Issei here as she asked. What happened? Morana looked at Issei. As she looked around, she then asked, Are we? And Issei interrupted her. Your mindscape? Yes. We are here. Morana was surprised. She never knew her mindscape looked like this. Unlike many, she never saw a mindscape before, and those that had a mindscape due to Issei using the nails, they were filled with too much emotions looking at Issei's presence to focus on the side. This is the first time I am seeing this. Miranda spoke with awe as Issei asks, Can I ask you something? Go ahead. You are my fiancé. After all, Miranda spoke with a slightly sad tone to which Issei shook his head and responded, No. I don't want to force anything on you. We never did converse before, Essie noted as Miranda nods. She then speaks, Go ahead as Essie speaks. Why do you support the angel faction so much that you still are loyal to them even after what they did to you? Essie asked to Miranda. As she looked down, he took a seat opposite to her with only a few inches acting as a distance between them. They are the only thing I had. Both of my parents were exorcists, and they died defending Sarah Gabriel. All my life, I was taught that there was nothing more important than serving God. That was how I was raised, Issei Heidu. Mirana spoke while looking down. She was starting to doubt the Heaven faction due to her engagement with Issei Heidu. She was angry at first, but now she was happy that she was engaged to the supposed true hero of the factions. I see. So aside from that, you never had any other dreams? Issei asked, to which Miranda looked down as she spoke. I always wanted to be a chemical scientist, someone that would help others in the future, but my parents never appreciated that dream. Morano spoke sadly as she continued. Well, I forgot about it a long time ago. Issei sighed. Her story was kind of relatable to some children in the human world, their parents forcing them to do what they want, even sometimes ignoring their wants and desires. He then spoke. So tell me, would you work for those people that abandoned you? I mean, Michael didn't even come once to visit you, Issei spoke. As Miranda agreed to what Issei said, out of guilt and fear, the man never showed up. Issei sighed and spoke. Look, Miranda, I will get to the point. Since you know what I went through, you have a choice. Are you going to serve the people that look down upon humanity, or are you going to follow your dreams? Miranda looked at what Issei had told her. She did not want to serve Michael or Gabriel, not after knowing what they truly are, or in Gabriel's case, were. I am not so sure. Gabriel betrayed me and decided to join the droid faction. Miranda looked down as tears fell from her eyes. Issei then spoke. Have you ever wondered why? Miranda looked surprised. Her eyes were still teary-eyed, as she shook her head. Issei then spoke. Because she saw how far the supernatural had fallen. Many others have decided to join the droid faction because of that, think Morana. They have seen the supernatural for what it is. Humanity has been either used as slaves for their own end goals, or they have been looked down upon and discarded. Worst of all, they don't even know that there are more supernatural around them than they realize. Many humans have fallen prey to their schemes, some have even died, myself included. Just imagine how many must have died for choosing to free themselves from the influence of the supernatural. How many have chosen or have been forced to join them? Eyes spoke coldly with a smirk. She was realizing the truth. She was understanding that her life had no meaning, it never did. She was just a soldier bred to serve in a war, that no one will ever know what she has truly done, since all credit will mostly go to the angels. Ever wondered why was I looked down upon and hated? It was because I never had the power to serve them or solve their problems. Issei put an emphasis on there, as Morano was saddened. Now, also they expect me to help them. Despite the worst shit they have put me through, they believe that I am entitled to help them just because I am the Red Dragon Emperor and a former human being. I see, but even then, what the droid faction is doing is mass genocide. I can't let them happen. Issei sighed. That is what most people say. Their humanity is something that is holding her back. Then tell me, the supernatural don't care about us. They live in the underworld, controlling most of the human world. While we humans are working as their underdogs, they live a life of luxury, and yet they still look down upon us. I mean, ask yourself this, hypothetically, if a regular human asked a high-class devil out, what would their response be? Verano wondered what Issei meant as she asked. Will she turn him down? Issei chuckled as he spoke. Oh no. He will insult him or her in the worst way possible, but will also admonish him to the point of no return. It is not because they hate him. No, for most of the supernatural, humanity is nothing but a toy that they can play or manipulate when they see fit. They will use you and discard you when they don't like you. This is why I hate the supernatural, Morana. They use humans like you as pawns and will make you fight their battles. Issei spoke, making Morana realize what she really was. As Issei continued, even God and angels are no different. After all, Lucifer Morningstar started off as an angel. Right, Morana clenched her fists in anger, as Issei asked, so do you still wish to be part of the angels that will discard and eliminate you when they have no use for you, or do you want to be a part of the faction where you will fight for what you believe is right? Morana looked at Issei as she spoke. I am in, but how will I join the droid faction? Issei smiled as he spoke. What if I told you that the one who you were talking to was the supreme leader of the droid faction? No way. Morana spoke with shock as she spoke. You are the supreme leader, is it not Malik? Close, he is actually a clone of me, but to me, he is more family than my actual family, but I am the one who calls the shots in the droid faction, if anything. So what do you say, Morana? Think about it. Issei got up as he spoke. Morana was left in thought. Even if you did tell the factions about us, think, Morana, do you really think they will be able to stop us? As we speak, 2 factions have already fallen, many more will fall soon. As he spoke, as he continued, even your friend is one of us. Elizabeth? Marana asked. As Issei nods, she couldn't take the fact that she was nothing but a pawn and was devastated. Even as a spy, she hates being near Michael and his angel factions. I was able to convince her with the promise of causing the fall of heaven. Marana was almost considering joining Asahi as she looked at Asahi, who spoke. She has been doing this for months, as I recall. It is slow, but the fear on the factions is satisfying to me. Seeing them suffer is something I will always enjoy. So, Morana, make your choice. You can either join me willingly or become a sleeper agent. I accept this if Elizabeth also thinks that this is worth the effort, then I am also joining you. Morana spoke as Issei shook his head. Look, Morana, you don't have to do this because Elizabeth wants, and Morana interrupts him and speaks. I am willing to do this for myself, and besides I am engaged to you and I shall follow you. It is how I was raised to fight for what I believe is right. My parents were naive to follow and die for the angels. That is why I wish to join a faction that desires to show the reality to the world, to show what the supernatural really is. I want to see a world where humanity is no longer looked down upon, not ever again, Murano declares as Issei nods. He turns around as he speaks. Elizabeth will be really happy to work with you again. Murano beams at this. As she nods, they exit the mindscape with the whole space whitening out. Scene change. Murano woke up as she saw Issei, Elizabeth, Gabriel, and the two BX commando droids looking at her as Issei speaks. She is one of us. Elizabeth beams at this and hugs Morana as she rubs her cheeks close to her. She does not have to kill her close friend due to the droid faction asking her. Elizabeth P. please. This is embarrassing. Morana spoke with a flustered look. This went for a moment. Issei could not help but smile seeing this scene. She pushes Elizabeth away as she and Elizabeth split up, with Elizabeth having a pout that made Issei chuckle before changing into a serious tone. Either way, you know the three of you will be in charge of infiltrating heaven. Issei looked at the three, all of whom were now serious. You will pave the way for the droid faction to enter and destroy every last location in heaven, including make sure nothing stands in the way when this happens. But what about the deceased souls? Gabriel asked with a bit of concern as Issei spoke. They will all end up in purgatory, the true afterlife. It is a special dimension where the souls that are seemingly destroyed go. Issei spoke with a serious tone. Those human souls will be truly free from the influence of any supernatural. Issei knew that there were two purgatories, but the other one from which Cao Cao and Layden entered is not called purgatory. The purgatory, which nearly killed Essie, was considered to be as such. I see, so the purgatory that my father made. Essie shook his head and responded on Gabriel's question. I doubt that is even the real purgatory. I call it purgatory because that is where the souls head to or are supposed to head to. I don't know who made it, but I theorized as that whoever did made sure that this place is meant to house the souls and is inescapable. I see, so father mimic whoever made this. Gabriel asked in a neutral tone, to which Issei nodded. I believe so. Does this answer your questions? Issei asked. As the girls nod, Issei then speaks seriously. I believe you should leave. Prolonged absence will cause some problems, and I don't want that. As you wish, Lord Issei. The three girls teleported. Leaving Issei in his room, he headed to his room to work as he did some more research on dismantling the crescent circle gauntlets. As Crom spoke. So how much progress you have made? Issei responded. I believe soon you will be able to breathe free air as long as you don't cause any problems in the human world. You should be alright. You can do whatever you want. I will roam the world. I always wanted to see what changes happen while I was trapped here, and with several hosts who only wanted me for my power. After that, I will join you. Issei smiled on the answer as he continued to work. Moments later, a magic circle of Norse origin opened up. Issei became on guard as he was surprised to see Gondel. Oh, Gondel, what brings you here? Issei asked Gondel as she spoke. I believe she wants to speak to you. Issei widened his eyes at first before sighing as he speaks. So she has finally decided to join. Gondel nods as she wonders what Essie will do as he approaches her and enters her mindscape to talk to her. Scene change. Gondel's mindscape, 12 p.m. Essie saw Gondel, The woman's face had lost all the light from her eyes, her cheeks were tear-stained, she did not resist her move. It felt like her whole life was snatched away, she seemed to be in a catatonic state. Issei was angry was an understatement, he was beyond furious at what Auden did to her. His words broke her completely when all she was doing was serving him. She stopped Issei from killing a Juka only to be repaid in such a manner. He hated Odin even more. I guess you are no better than Zeus, Odin? Issei thought angrily as he was going to make the Norse All-Father pay in blood. He decided to calm her down. Hello, Gondel. Issei looked at Gondel, whose eyes started to move. She looked at Issei with the weakest smile she could muster. She had lost all purpose in her life. She started to tear up again, tears falling from her eyes. Lord Issei removed the chains. Despite this, she fell down. She did not have the strength to move. Issei crouched to her level, as he asked, "Why you didn't come to me earlier?" Like Artemis and Elizabeth did. Issei spoke, remembering how devastated Elizabeth and Artemis were. That was one of the reasons why he decided to take down Heaven faction sooner than before. However, Issei got no response from Gondel. Issei understood that Odin's betrayal completely broke the Valkyrie. He knew of their loyalty, and now she had lost all purpose in her life. I see. So you have no purpose, Gondel nods in response as she continues while crying. I served Odin with all my being, all my life. I entrusted Rosways to him knowing that she will be well taken care of even after joining you. I still had faith in him, and now he did this. I don't know what will I do now. Gondel kept weeping. Issei was right. She was the most loyal among the first 3 allies he had recruited forcefully. Even Elizabeth and Artemis's combined loyalty to their former factions can't match Gondel's own loyalty. Issei sat down, opposite to her. He kept his legs crossed. As he pulled Gondel close to him, he spoke with a smile. How about I give you a purpose? Gondel's eyes widened. She wondered what purpose is Issei referring to. You can fight for me, and unlike Adon, I won't betray you when I see fit. Issei spoke with a neutral tone, however, he had a smile, a genuine one. But how can I trust you? Issei responded to Gondel's question. I honestly don't know how you can gain my trust, just saying. Issei spoke, causing Gondel to look down. But so far, I haven't betrayed you, even your false personality. Right. I even defended your honor when they insulted you. Right. Gondel looks at him and nods. The light in her eyes was starting to reappear. It was still minimal, however. You see, Odin abandoned you because you chose me. Issei spoke with a slight sadness. He blamed Odin for doing this to her, and this was unforgivable. Odin needed to answer for his crimes, and he will make him pay for it. Donnell gave a sad nod as Issei spoke. Then live for my sake. You can avenge your honor due to what Odin did to you. Do you wish to take him down? Issei asked Gondel, who did not seem to have an answer. I honestly don't know. Sure. I would want to serve you, but honestly, Odin's death, I doubt it would change much. Gondel spoke with a sad tone as Issei sighed. He understood that she was still affected by what Odin did. His actions have left a scar in her heart, which may possibly never recover. Not until someone helps her, and Issei was ready to help her. She doesn't deserve this. Unlike many others from the Norse faction, Gondel never looked down upon him. However, Issei feared that any interaction could be misinterpreted. And with Rosways and Dee manipulating her, she could potentially turn against him, like several others. However, Gondel was perceptive. As she did not immediately hate him like many others, he wondered what would have happened had he chosen to interact with her. Look, I don't know much about your past, but all I know is that you need a purpose to fight for, Gondel. How about this? How about I give you a purpose to fight for? You can fight and live for me. You are a valuable member of the droid faction, after all, and you are quite important to the faction. You fight for me and live for me, and I assure you, you will never be left behind. Issei spoke with a genuine smile as the light in Gondel's eyes started to rise even more. If anything, I know how a person who betrayed feels. I have experienced this feeling too. The one whom you look up to and want to be with turns their back on. I have experienced it too. The only difference was that I have experienced it over and over again. It was one of the reasons why I became the way I am today. My eyes were opened, which was sealed shut for all those years. Issei spoke with a sad sigh as Gondal looked away. She remembered what Issei went through as he continued. I once conversed with RageRevan live in Lucifer. During my final battle with him, he called me an idiot for continuing to serve the factions that hated me. I guess he was right. I really was an idiot to serve those people. You talked to him? Gondola asked with a surprised tone, as Issei spoke. Yep. For once, he chose not to manipulate me in any way. He was right. I served them without expecting anything in return, but everything I did was stolen by my brother, and worse, they hated and admonished me. RageRevan was not wrong in any way. He was right, and I should have listened to him. I still saved the factions, but all my achievements were stolen. Truth be told, I was a fool thinking that things will get better if I keep helping them, that maybe, just maybe the factions will give me the respect I deserve, or at the very least stop looking down on me or hating me, but that will never happen. I fought for them, and they did this to me. That is when I decided never, I am done fighting for them, but I realized that they will never learn, no matter what happens, they needed to be eliminated because of what they are. They showed me their true selves, Issei continued, as Gondal listened to him. People may call me twisted, deranged, or even a monster for letting innocents die, but in reality, none of the supernatural is innocent. They are all complicit in making me view the supernatural world for the cesspool. It is this needed to change, it needed to be fixed, and I will make them pay for what they have been doing. They only view humanity as tools to perform their wars and solve their problems. That is why I am destroying them. They are weeds that have no place in my new world, Issei spoke as Gondal now understood. He was the true savior of this world. He was right all along. Odin will betray her just like how Zeus betrayed Artemis. So Gondal, what do you think of Odin now? You saw his real face, didn't you? Gondal nods. She clenched her fist in fury. Odin was going to pay for what he did to her. She was treated this way for eons of service. She was not going to forgive him. If anything, she will never forgive him. I wish to willingly join you. I want to show Odin his biggest mistake, and that was to abandon me. You opened my eyes that I refused to open for so long. I want to join the droid faction, and I devote myself to you, Lord Issei. I do, Gondal declared while bowing as Issei smiled. He then spoke. Well then, welcome to the droid faction, Gondal. Everything turned to white as Issei removed the holy nails from her body. She now has willingly joined Issei, just like Artemis, Elizabeth, Quinella, Charlotte, and several others. The last thing Issei saw was Gondal speaking with a smile and a tone of gratitude as tears fell from her eyes. Her eyes now had the light, which she usually does. She now had another purpose in life. Thank you for this, Lord Issei. Scene change. Hi, dear residents, 1:30 p.m. Gondal groggily rubbed her eyes. She looked around to see her Lord and Savior Issei as Issei asked with a smile, How are you feeling? Gondal did not respond and hugged him. Her action took him by complete surprise as he spoke, only for Issei to hear crying, as she exclaimed in happiness, Thank you for giving me a purpose, please don't abandon me. Gondal moved her head towards Issei. Her eyes were glistening with hope. Issei was left stunned. He then recovers and speaks with a slightly flustered look. Well, you can release me now. Gondal releases him with a smile as she speaks with a determined tone before speaking in a sad tone. I won't disappoint you. Although I can help you with getting information with the Norse mythology. Oh, there are other ways you can help. Now that you are no longer part of Odin's Valkyries, you can train the sleeper agents in magic. They do need to be battle ready. Gondal nods as Issei speaks. So what do you think? I can do that and I will be your weapon, Volander, remember? Gondal spoke with a smile as he responds, Of course, your power will come in handy during our future invasion and fall of the Norse faction. I see, but Lord Issei, can I make a request? Issei seems surprised as he asks, What? I want to personally make Crosswiss my sleeper agent instead of Quinella. Please, she will be under me, and don't deny it. All right? Issei looked at her for a moment and spoke, Very well. I will talk to Quinella and Charlotte and get back to you. Now I think you should head back to train the sleeper agents. Understood. Gondal teleports back, leaving Issei alone as he spoke. Your grandmother is really a loyal person, Ross was. It is a shame now she will be your biggest enemy. Issei gets up and leaves the room. As he does so, he enters into his own personal room. He then saw Quinella and Charlotte waiting for him. Their expressions were glaring into Issei's soul. So can you tell us where have you been? Quinella spoke as Issei had a bad feeling about this as Charlotte spoke. And why do I smell the scent of another woman? Issei was baffled at this, as he thought. Does she have the smell of a fucking bloodhound? Drake was mentally chuckling as he responded. I pray for your survival tonight, and if you can't, I will call a coffin service. Issei glared at his best friend. As he mentally sighed, he hoped that he would survive the next few hours. He then spoke. The girls marched closer to Issei. As he flinched, they were barely a very few inches away from him. Issei started to feel a dark shadow come from them, as he thought. Well, hopefully, an explanation should hopefully fix things. Issei sighed and spoke. Allow me to explain. Issei explained the situation that had happened. He told them about Gondal officially joined them, and if anything, they talked to each other in Gondal's mindscape as she was now given a purpose. Then she hugged me out of gratitude. That's all Asil spoke, trying to explain as he saw the dark aura among the girls calm down. Quinella spoke with a sigh. Look, we don't mind you attracting other girls, but at least let us know. Asil sighed as he explained. I know, how about this? Once this war with heaven gets over, we should do something to commemorate our relationship. Issei spoke, causing them to lose their glaring expression, and they were surprised to hear what Issei has, as he came close to Quinella and spoke some words, which caused her to blush immensely. Quinella exclaimed. She was in the blushing daze for a moment before exclaiming with a low tone, You mean it? Issei nods as Charlotte asks Quinella, What did he say? Well, Quinella tries to suppress her blush as she speaks to Charlotte in the ear, who also has a red face. As a blush creeps up all the way to her face, she looks at Issei with a flustered look, as Issei grins and responds, Oh, and do tell Nix about it. This will be something you girls will enjoy, that is a promise. Issei walks away, leaving the girls in a blushing mess. Their mouths were wide open as steam was coming out from their ears. Once outside, he sighed in relief. He was definitely going to have a wonderful night after the war with heaven is over. Scene change. Time skip. Alex Base, 8:30 p.m. Issei was done with his work as he headed outside. He knew that his new general would awaken soon, as he would soon make his debut. He is then greeted by the rest of his allies. The only ones not present were Elizabeth, Gabriel, and Mirana, as they were spying on the angels preparing for Issei's arrival, as well as the sleeper agents who were all spying for Issei in their respective positions. So what is the plan? Malik asked as Issei activated a magic circle and spoke. Most of you will begin the attack on Vatican. Artemis, Gonel, Quinella, Charlotte, along with Miyuki will be under a disguised form. But how will we achieve a disguised form? I mean, there will be people guarding Vatican. Miyuki asked as Issei speaks while activating Innovate Clear. Once my sacred gear is activated, the whole worldview of the Vatican soldiers will change. They will see the most of you as a special kind of droid that is attacking them, so you needn't worry, and Maliki will be in charge of this. Issei speaks as he gives the gauntlet to Maliki. Response. I won't disappoint you. Issei smiles as he responds. I know you won't. And speaking of which, where is the new general that will assist us in the attack? Issei spoke with a smile as he responded, he should be coming out very soon. Issei's words brought wonder. However, no sooner than the door opened, they saw a figure from the shadows as a blade suddenly ignited in front of them, followed by heavy breathing. The lights suddenly were placed on him as a bright light glowed onto the man. He was a towering, black-clad armored man was shown in the distance. He had the mask of a samurai with several facial expressions on it, and a chest plate that was silver in color with striped appearance. He had several buttons below his chest plate, and his boots were made of an unknown material. I believe it is time for my debut. The voice of the man spoke in a raspy, metallic voice. His aura even made Artemis, Charlotte, Ingvild and Valerie shiver, while Gondal and Quinella seemed nervous or intimidated seeing him here. Even Malik, Grievous, Miyuki and several others were on guard seeing him here. Indeed, It is Vader. Issei spoke with a smirk. Issei and Nix were the only ones who was not affected. The now identified Vader changed his suit to make sure his heavy breathing stops, which did cause a sigh in relief for most of the people present. So what is your command, Lord Issei? Vader bowed in front of Issei as he spoke coldly. Rise, Vader. Vader did as follows. Issei then spoke seriously. You will have to eliminate a few people for me. I don't want them posing a problem to me in the future. Issei showed Vader their details and what their abilities are. As he spoke, it will be done, my lord. Issei nods, as he speaks seriously. I believe you all have 2 days to prepare. Until then, this meeting is adjourned. Any questions? When is my new battleship coming? Kelani asked intently. As Issei sighed, he then spoke. It will be operational in a day's time. Kelani nods and was excited to see his new battleship. Artemis then asks, will we have any changes to our army? It was La Folia that asked. As Issei nods, yes, you will be having stronger battle droids to win this battle, but I want to ensure that Vatican falls. There are certain targets that need to be eliminated in Vatican. Vader has already gotten his list, and you must make sure only a select few survive the whole assault. You may now leave if there are no questions. Everyone present nods as they all teleport and leave, except for Nix and Malik, as Nix asks, so what is going to happen next? And why choose Vatican? Essiel looked at her and spoke. 2 reasons. One is that the humans present in Vatican and Catholics have misused their power in the name of God, as well as have done crimes that even several criminals would think twice in doing. And the second reason is similar to many of the factions. Even angels don't have respect for humanity. They have this superior complex, which they don't show unlike most races, but at the same time, they refuse to be associated with humans. There is a reason why devils, angels and fallen angels are one and the same. As for the Saras, they mostly turns a blind eye to many of the deeds, especially projects like the Holy Sword Project. By the time they realize the damage is done, all they do is just kick out the person, and as complete hypocrites, they use the research from that project to create natural-born wielders for their own deeds. Issei spoke with anger in his voice, not to mention, the Vatican hide the past like their interference in the Clear Abilio incident, causing the mess to even begin with. All they wanted was to love each other, and the council along with Irina's father decided to wipe them out. The angels and many others back then refused to believe that a romance between a person from the church and the devils can happen, and worst of all, the 4 seraphs weren't even aware of this. Issei spoke with anger, remembering his encounter with Masao Miyagaki during his visit to heaven. Honestly, I think their peace and devotion to God is nothing but a lie. Essiel spoke angrily as he continued, then again, the biblical God wasn't exactly what you call perfect, yet they act as if they are perfect. In every way. Essiel spoke with a sigh. As Nix nodded, that was a good enough answer for her. She knew that she will be coming with Issei to the heaven system itself, to destroy it once and for all. Speaking of which, is there anything that you need to do before you take down the ones in Vatican? Malik asked, to which Issei nodded. A certain man has been having ill intent, or even murderous intent towards Quinella and Charlotte. I need to eliminate him as well as deal with those morons. Essie spoke with a snarl as Nix and Malik understood who he was talking about. He has eyes and ears everywhere, and a certain man is going to die tonight. Scene change. Idu residence, 10 p.m. Issei was heading home as he was preparing to eliminate the man that was attempting to hurt his future mates. As he did, a magic circle opened up, revealing to be the Gremry peerage, which caught him off guard. He expected them to never show up to his house, well, except for Asia, that was. Tell me, where is my grandmother Haide? The voice spoke seriously. It was revealed to be Rasois, to which AC responded, like you have the right to demand of me, Rasois. I would suggest you to keep yourself under check. Rasois gulped and nervously backed away as Riaz tried to speak, but not before Issei cuts her off. And shut your pie hole of the mouth, Gremry. Any word that comes out of you is retarded, so shut the fuck up before I rip your tongue from your mouth. Issei cuts her off with an angered tone, causing Riaz to furiously clench her fists in anger. She glared at Issei, as Kaneko spoke in an emotionless yet angry voice. You should show some respect to the president. Issei chuckled at the girl's threat as he responded. And if I don't, she can't call her older brother since I already defeated him and eliminated Satan Ajuka Beelzebub. So if anything, you should be the one begging on your feet and licking my boots. Issei spoke with a mocking tone, making Kaneko nearly charge at him, but she was stopped by Zenobia before she could do anything that would cost her her life. Now if you'll excuse me, I have got better things to do than listen to you morons. As he spoke coldly, leaving the group agape as he continued, and if you are wondering or still care about your grandmother, she is in good hands. I am looking after her for what that old fucker did to her, and unlike you, who is a terrible granddaughter, I am taking and will take good care of her. If anything, you should be ashamed of supporting Odin for the devastating state he left your grandmother in. Goodbye. Issei entered into his house, leaving everyone shocked and angry from his cold attitude. He hardly cared about Roswei's feelings. Meanwhile, Roswei's was devastated from learning about her grandmother. Meanwhile, Issei clenched his fist in anger. He wanted to eliminate them right then and there. They still haven't changed or even tried to change. Scene change, Bui outskirts, 10:15 p.m. A man was thrown flying as he was slammed to a concrete wall. He recovered and used his sacred gear to try and immobilize his attacker, but he dodged with relative ease. The moonlight shone on the attacker's face. It was revealed to be Issei Hindu. Damn. The victim, whose face was revealed to be Jinchiro Saji, was revealed as Issei spoke. You really are a piece of shit, aren't you, Saji? Going after my mates, that's really low. Issei exclaimed angrily. As he had his boosted gear, Jinchiro furiously glared at Issei, with the latter exclaiming in fury. It wasn't enough for you to make my life miserable along with my pathetic brother, but now you tried to hurt them, Saji. Tonight will be your last day on your planet. Those bitches were Jaya. Jinchiro tried to speak, as Issei punched him in the ribs edge hard enough for it to completely shatter. Jinchiro was on his knees as Issei kicked him in the chin, causing a tooth to come out. Jinchiro's face fell the other side. Issei screamed, "Shut up, scum, like you won't listen by words, so torture is the only way you will learn," Issei shouted as he grabbed him by the hair and shirt and gave him a knee kick to his face, destroying his nose. His face was already bloody with him coughing up blood while he screamed in pain. Even then, torturing you would be pointless, and because of you Kiho and Django will be unsupported, Issei spoke sadly, which Saji glares furiously. He tries to speak, but Issei stomped him to the ground, shutting his mouth up. But don't worry, they will no longer have to live with the pathetic disgrace of a brother like you. Issei activated dark light in his body as he was ready to kill him. He increased the light to the point enough for it to be lethal. Goodbye, say hide or die for me in the afterlife. Issei spoke with a maniacal grin as he blasts him with dark light, making sure to leave no trace of him was left. Saji screamed in pain, leaving no trace of him minus his 4 evil pieces that fall on the ground. Issei approaches them and stomps the evil pieces, leaving nothing of the pieces left. Issei teleports back to his house to rest for a while. Another threat to his family has been eliminated. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.